He just, maybe it says that young brain.
I'm here. And he waved at me. And I was like, oh, well, I only have a couple.
It's all right. I just
sorry. I didn't
right
know.
there. Because Sharon was here. She could play. I could play with Sharon. So. Pastoral care person.
Yeah. Just wanting to know.
You can catch his eye in a minute. Yeah. Well, someone else is preaching, so. Someone else is preaching today, so.
Oh. Okay, thank you, Steve. Okay.
Either that one barely makes noise and this one makes way too much.
Plus, it looks like you're playing with Legos up here.
Good morning. Let's start with some singing. I'm Reverend Kelly Walker Hart. Please rise in body or spirit. Number 1018, the words will be up here or it's in the gray hymnal. Come and go with me to that land. Come and go with me to that land. Come and go with me to that land. Where I'm bound, go with me to that land. Come and go with me to that land. Come and go with me to that land. Where I'm bound, there'll be freedom. There'll be freedom in that land. There'll be freedom in that land. There'll be justice, there'll be justice in that. Sing it like you mean it. There'll be justice in that land. There'll be justice in that land where I'm bound. There'll be justice in that land. There'll be justice in that land. There'll be justice in that land where I'm bound. And of course they'll be singing. They'll be singing. You know the words. Look at each other. In that. Look around at the great people in here. In that land where I'm bound. They'll be singing in that land. They'll be singing in that land. They'll be singing. Come and go with me to that land where I'm bound. Come and go with me to that land. Come and go with me to that land. Come and go with me to that land where I'm bound. Please be seated. And I need the children's choir to come up. William in the house? William was here first service, but I think he went home. Okay.
I dare you to try not to be in a good mood after that. Thank you, choir. That was really great. I want to read words from Marianne Hatchton Cotter as we open our time together this morning. She writes, "Welcome to this place of possibility. This is love's hearth, the home of hope, a refuge for minds in search of truth unfolding, ever beautiful, ever strange. Here, compassion is our shelter, freedom our protection from the storms of bigotry and hate. In this abode may we find comfort and courage. Here may our sight become vision to see the unseen, to glimpse the good that is yet to be. Come, let us worship together." Please join me in in reading in unison as we light our chalice. We kindle this flame Well, I am Reverend Andy Burnett. I'm the senior minister here, but today it's my joy to be a worship associate. I don't often get to do this, so it's good to welcome you to worship at Valley Unitarian Universalist congregation. We're always glad to welcome folks for whom it's their first or second visit with us. And so if that's you, could you please, if you can, find the courage, if you're able, to stand so that we might more fully welcome you this morning. If it's your first or second time, would you stand? We are so glad you chose to be with us this morning. As always, after the service, we have a lay pastoral care associate available for anyone who needs a listening ear. Today, that's Steve Grams. And Steve, right here, Steve will be available at the front of the service if, again, you're processing something that you just need to talk out with someone. That's what our lay pastoral care associates are trained to do, and Steve will be glad to welcome you this morning. Today, we welcome Roy Tatum to the pulpit, and I want to introduce Roy to you now. By the time Roy was 30 years old, he was a successful entrepreneur, motivational speaker, political activist, and community organizer. Growing up in Virginia Beach, Virginia, Roy realized his responsibility to his community at an early age and decided to pursue political endeavors after reading the autobiography of Malcolm X at age 15. He became passionate about engaging underrepresented communities in political and social justice issues and helping them understand the power of the vote. While he was a student at Virginia State University, Roy turned his passion into action. In 1996, he worked with Rock the Vote to expand access to the ballot box by registering voters, where he learned, and there he learned the art of grassroots organizing. After receiving a degree in political science with a minor in history, he landed a job on Capitol Hill as a staffer for Senator Chuck Robb. In 2001, Roy began working on political campaigns where he went from encouraging underrepresented communities to vote to helping leaders from those communities run for office. After winning several local races, he took his campaign strategies to presidential candidates, serving as the grassroots leader for Hampton Roads for Barack Obama in 2008, and as the deputy director for African American outreach for Bernie Sanders in 2016. I hear we have a fan or two in the congregation. Roy has also started his own consulting firm, Vanguard Strategies and Consulting, offering strategic marketing and campaign solutions to political candidates, to movements, and to businesses. He's remained active with several community and civic organizations. Roy is president of the East Valley NAACP, leading a phenomenal team that's strengthening community relations with the police and implementing strategies to eliminate the school-to-prison pipeline. He serves as the political chair for the Arizona State Conference of the NAACP, where he tracks legislation and policies impacting communities of color. He also serves on several community boards. He's the chair of Sheriff Penzone's African American Advisory Committee and a member of the Chandler Unified School District's Diversity and Inclusion Advisory Board and the Census 2020 Complete Count Committee for the City of Tempe. And as a lifelong member of the National Urban League, he was recognized as its top 10 young professional leaders at the 2017 convention. He lives right here in Chandler. In this month in which our theme is truth, Roy will be delivering the sermon in this morning's service, and he'll be leading a forum on race in the Valley at 1 p.m. right here. I hope you can stay around for that. Roy, my friend, it is our honor to have you with us this morning.
And now we get to sing again. Number, I think, 170. Yes, We Are a Gentle, Angry People, written by Holly Near after the Harvey Milk shootings in the 1970s. Singing from our hearts like this, and the real title is Singing for Our Lives, helps save lives. She probably averted a riot with this song. The words are a little different than in the hymnal. You'll see them up here. Please rise in body or spirit, number 170. We are gentle, angry people, and we are singing for our lives. We are a gentle, angry people, and we are singing for our lives, justice seeking. We are a justice-seeking people, and we are singing for our lives. We are a justice-seeking people, and we are singing for our lives. We are all of us together, and we are singing for our lives. We are all of us together, and we are singing for our lives. We are a gentle, loving people, and we are singing for our lives. We are a gentle, loving people, and we are singing for our lives.
Well, after reading that bio, Roy wondered if maybe he should learn to say no more often. But you know, all of us hear the call to justice and love and reconciliation in our communities, and we respond in a lot of ways. We respond by sharing our talents, we respond by giving of our time, and we respond with our finances. And so this morning, as we come to receive the offering that will fund this congregation's vision of love and service and justice, I thank you, as always, for all the many forms of your generosity.
We invite the children to come forward with their offering and then to stay for the time for all ages.
Good morning. So I have a story to help the kids today, maybe deal with some confusion that may be going on sometimes. So what you guys need to know is that sometimes when grown-ups are trying to hide some scary things from the kids, it's usually because the grown-ups are a little scared too. So you might see something on TV that shows what's really going on, and the grown-ups want to kind of hide the truth so that you feel safe. So like grown-ups might say, our family is kind to everyone. We don't see color. But we all know that deep down, you know that color does matter in the world. Skin color can make a difference on how the world sees you and how you see the world. It makes a difference in how trouble seems to find you or just to let you be. In stores, in cars, on sidewalks, at school, your skin color affects the most ordinary daily experiences, including which neighborhoods welcome you. Racism is a white person's problem, and we are all caught up in it, mostly by just refusing to look at it. But you can face this. Understanding the truth takes courage, especially a painful truth about your own people, your own family. Even people you love may behave in ways that show that maybe they think they're the good ones. But the good news is racism was not your idea, so you don't have to defend it. You can bring your curiosity to learn about it, and you can see what's true. Many white people did things they should never have done. Many other white people failed to see the problem with this. These choices put wealth and power into white hands and homes and neighborhoods. But some white people did join the leaders of the Black liberation. Racism is still happening. It keeps changing and it keeps being the same. And yet, just being here, alive at this moment, you have a chance to care about this and to connect. But connecting means opening, and sometimes opening can feel like breaking. So go with your instincts on this. Racial justice is possible, but only if we're honest with each other and ourselves. Your history is not all written yet. What do you want that history to say about you?
Thank you, Marcy, for that strong message. And now we're going to sing our children out as we always do under a bridge of love. Some of them will be staying in the service and some go to nursery. If you're comfortable, come close. A song from the Civil Rights era, Ain't Gonna Let Nobody Turn Me Round. Be seated. We'll be singing a song now that many of us know. The tune is Finlandia. It comes from Finland, and we know several different versions of it. This one is We Would Be One. It'll be in the gray hymnal or up here. Then after our prayer, we'll sing together Spirit of Life. I'll start it in Spanish, and please feel free to hum along as I do the Spanish, and then we'll sing it in English. And let's start with a couple of deep breaths as we begin our centering time. Breathing in and breathing out. Breathing in and breathing out. One more, breathing in and breathing out. We would be one. We would be one as now we join in singing our hymn of love to pledge ourselves anew to that high course of greater understanding of who we are and what in us is true. We would be one in living for each other to show to all a new community. We would be one in building for tomorrow a nobler world than we have known today. We would be one in searching for that meaning which binds our hearts and points us on our way. As one we pledge ourselves to greater service with love and justice, strive to make us free.
Please join me in a spirit of prayer. Great Spirit of life, the words of the song are true. We would be one. But let us not rush so quickly to oneness that we trample individuality. Let us not worship at the altar of compromise for the sake of compromise, calling it oneness when really it's just maintenance of the status quo. Instead, let us grow in our understanding and love of one another in all of our diversity. Let us be fierce defenders of all whose rights are denied, joining arms and fighting for the good and the right. And may there develop from that work a true oneness of purpose and spirit. Some days it seems a long way off. These times in which we are bombarded with messages of division, anxiety, and anger. But let us keep to the North Star of true oneness. It is possible if we keep working. It is ours, this work, to do. May it be so. Amen.
Please hum along with me.
morning. I still say, because I said the first service, that the message to the children could have been the sermon. And I still feel that way. And so I want to thank Reverend Andy for the invitation, and to the members of the VUU of Chandler for welcoming me here to share this morning. I will talk about a few things. The first part of my subject today is entitled Repairing the Breach. And as Reverend Andy and I were talking about coming forward to speak with you this morning, I contemplated, pondered, meditated, prayed about what to even say. And it just kept coming up, and I thought about Reverend William Barber, who's also an amazing leader within the social justice, civil rights movement. The North Carolina, he was the past North Carolina state president of the NAACP, and his mission right now is to restore the work of Martin Luther King in the Poor People's Campaign. And the name that he's given his group, or the name or his movement, is Repairers of the Breach. So I thought it was important to revisit this subject, or even explore the subject a little more. So I prepared a brief discussion on it. And so I want to talk about, what does it mean to repair? What is the breach? What does that have to do with anything, especially as we talk about America, especially as we talk about race in America, and especially as we talk about African Americans in America? What does it mean to repair the breach? And before I go down that road, I want to make sure that I'm clear on definition. So I went to the dictionary and looked up the word repair. And I was really amazed when I found out, uncovered or became aware of, that repair can be used as a verb and a noun. So one word could mean two different things in different contexts. So I want to read the definition of the word repair. The verb, to fix or mend, a thing suffering from damage or fault. Faulty electrical appliances should be repaired by an electrician. The synonyms, to mend, fix up, put right, set right, restore to working order, make as good as new, patch up, put back together, overhaul, service, renovate, recondition, rehabilitate, rebuild, reconstruct, refit, adjust, regulate. All right? Also, make good by fixing or repairing it. Okay? Antonyms could be destroy, destruct. All right? To wreck, worsen. Breach. What is a breach? An act of breaking or failing to observe a law, agreement, or code of conduct, a breach of confidence. Synonyms: contravention, violation, breaking, non-observance, infringement, transgression, neglect, dereliction. Synonyms: break, rupture, split, crack, fracture, rent, rift. Now, when we think about, when I was reading those definitions, and I thought about America, and you think about the history, you think about what's been broken. You think about what needs repair. Or you can say, who's been broken? Or who needs repair? And you begin to say, well, whose responsibility is it to fix what's been broken? Whose responsibility is it to do the repair? Well, in the definition of repair, there was an example to repair a truck. And I was thinking about that. I was like, wow, okay. If you have teenage drivers, or if you're a teenage driver, and you have let's say you have a truck in your yard, and it's time for your teenage driver. Anybody got teenage drivers? Or you just drive like teenagers? Right? I've seen y'all in Chandler. And if that truck has been neglected, you didn't change the oil, you put the cheapest gas in, and you didn't do the monthly or the routine maintenance, and the truck's just sitting there. And your 16-year-old, it's time for them to get their license and drive. And unfortunately, due to your neglect of the truck or of that vehicle, it is inoperable. They can't drive it. But they want to drive it because they see it's right there. It's there for them. They anticipated when it was in working order that they would have the opportunity when they got their license to drive themselves. But that truck is inoperable. So whose responsibility is it to repair the truck, to put it in operating order? Is it the 16-year-old who, forgets to take a shower sometimes before they go to school in the morning, or leave every light on in the house, or you're afraid for them to cook when you're not home because you may not have a home. Is it their responsibility though to restore and repair a truck that you neglected as the parent? They could try to be ingenuitive and use modern technology and go on YouTube and, get instructions from somebody on YouTube that they don't know, but the videos that they're saying, here's how and they go out to tinker. But they could also make this a bad situation worse, trying to do it themselves, right? For the do-it-yourselfers. Try to they can make a bad situation worse, or they could put themselves in danger by trying to repair this truck themselves. Well, I'm just using this as an example, America. Because we can't deny that there's been damage done in our society to people, and mainly I want to talk about African Americans. Because record has shown that the first Africans were brought here in 1619, Jamestown, Virginia, turned into slaves and for slave labor. America has enjoyed that slave labor for at least 246 years, up to 1865, the conclusion of the Civil War. In that 246-year period, America became an economic superpower. One reason is because of cotton. For those not familiar, cotton in the 19th century, there were over 1 billion pounds of cotton picked, shipped, exported, sold, manufactured in America, making America an amazing economic superpower. Now, for those that own businesses, if you were able to have business or a business entity for 20 years with no labor costs, you'd be on the cover of Forbes, Fortune, Money, Inc. magazine, as a super wealthy person. But America has enjoyed that luxury, that was a luxury, at the cost of free labor by enslaved Africans. And I'm intentional in saying enslaved Africans. I don't relegate my ancestors to just being slaves, because they were people. They were men, women, human beings, people with a soul, a heart, compassion for one another and for their community and people. So I don't just say a slave, because a slave is dehumanizing language in itself. So I say those enslaved Africans, because that is the truth. Now, I just want to go over a couple of numbers for you, just for the sake of this conversation, so you can understand what America, the responsibility, because who's responsible? People say, well, I didn't do that. That's not me. I didn't own any slaves, or I didn't bring anybody over here. My ancestors came in on immigrant ships, and they went through Ellis Island. I don't have any responsibility for that. I'm not talking about you. Nobody in here owned any slaves. I hope not. I hope not. But I want to talk about America as a society that we live in, and the freedoms that we enjoy, and the financial power that we still enjoy from centuries ago. So let me read this to you, and it says, and I received this from my pastor, Reverend Reginald Walton. He sent this to me. He said, in the case of black Americans, the wrong that needs to be repaired is 250 years of slavery, 90 years of Jim Crow, 60 years of separate but equal, and 35 years of racist housing policies for African Americans. By calculating the number of hours all men, women, and children enslaved in the United States worked from 1776, multiplied by average wage prices at the time, the final assessing and compounding interest rate of 3% per year to overcompensate for inflation over the last 200 years, the most fiscally fair estimate to date of what reparations for slavery would cost is between $5.9 trillion and $14.2 trillion. Now, no one wants to hear that or entertain those numbers. You'd be crying just like our little sister right here if you got hit with a $5 trillion, let alone $14 trillion bill. But that is the reality. And many people will say, well, where's that money going to come? Where would that money come from? I will tell you, and I'll be the first to let you know that there's a lot of government fiscal mismanagement. In 2016, there were documents that showed that America mismanaged $21 trillion. Mismanaged. I'm talking about money that you don't even know where it went. You didn't even know it was there. 21 trillion. So the whole conversation that we don't have the money, that's not the conversation. But it's what you do with the money. Now, I want to talk about, people will say, well, is there, how does all this, how do we start? How do we make, we got to start by having real conversations, just like I just did, the numbers, right? Over the numbers. How do we get everybody on board? Everybody may not be on board. But if we're talking about justice, if we're talking about what's right, wealth, America became an economic superpower based on this free labor. And so there has to be a consequence. There has to be a measure of justice or an attempt to repair what was broken. Because in that process, Families were broken apart. Lives, millions of lives lost. Not even counting the millions of people that died in the transition, what we call the Middle Passage, between Africa and what was known as the New World. The millions of lives lost in between that and the horrors experienced on those ships. So I can't, provide all of the instances of, or all the solutions, but what I can do is provide the historical context that many people, and unfortunately, many white people are unaware of and not educated on. It's not your fault. Unfortunately, our education system, when we talk about Black History Month, we just concluded 2019, Black History Month. And many people would think, well, the black children are excited about Black History. All children should be excited about Black History Month. So just like those children just got that lesson on race, maybe race relations, it was light, quick. It was age appropriate. But all children should have that type of education. Does that make sense? And so when we talk about Black History Month, don't just change the channel. Let your children indulge and learn and get familiar with that type of education, because that will help them make it in the real world. Now let me get back to my notes here, because I want to make sure that everybody understands that even after the Civil War, from 1865 to 1965, there was so much terror within America, not just the South, but especially in the South. But there were over 4,000 lynchings documented. The NAACP was started because of the mass amount of lynchings that were taking place, that were just used as terrorist tactics. All right, to where they developed a flag that hung out of the headquarters window that would say a man was lynched yesterday for every time there was a lynching. Okay? Now, how do you rectify that? How do you repair that damage, that psychological damage, that terror? Nowadays, you can go take somebody to court for pain and suffering. You made me worry too much. You caused me anxiety. I could take you to court for that, right? But what happens? How does America rectify the pain and suffering? We're not even talking about the loss of land. We're not talking about the free labor. I'm not even equating that into the equation. The numbers I gave you a few minutes ago were just labor numbers, the work that was done. So let me tell you a quick story, which was pretty amazing to me as we talk about repairing the breach. I thought about my own family in a story that my grandmother, I'm thinking about my grandmother, and she made a number of rules in the house. I was young and rambunctious, and I would be running in and out of the house, and run to the refrigerator and run by everything. And she was like, "Stop running! Don't run in my house, and don't slam the door, and be careful, and don't knock anything over." I got in trouble for that a number of times for running in the house. Well, one day, I was not at my grandmother's house, but my cousins were there, and they were one was the only girl. They'll kill me if they knew I told this story, but they were some of my grandmother's favorites. They could do no wrong. Those grandchildren, right? You may have some grandchildren like that, but this one day, and they were running in Grandma's house in the living room where the good furniture was. And they knocked over one of Grandma's favorite statues and pretty much shattered it. For what I understand is they got a serious whipping that evening. True story, it's how it happened. And when I got word of it, I laughed. I got a couple good laughs off of that. because I was no longer the troublemaker. But here's my point about that. They could not repair Grandma's statue. They could not replace it. I don't know what my aunts and uncles did to make Grandma whole, but from what I understand, she was pretty upset about that. And I mean, it was such an impact. We still talk about this. Probably happened 30 years ago. But it's a conversation that still comes up when we all get together as a family. So it was that impactful. But Grandma, and I'm sure they had chores to do and punishment, whatever the punishment was. They had not only did they have to do chores at Grandma's house to make up, they had to do chores at their own house to make up. So we talk about repair. You know, you gotta show that you're remorseful for your activity. One, because you broke Grandma's rule. She told you don't run in the house. So a lot of times in black households, you can get in trouble not just for breaking something. You get in trouble for breaking the rules, the way you broke the rules, how often you broke the rule, and the time you broke the rule a month ago, but I didn't catch you for breaking the rule. So all that would combine and compound. You got in trouble, compound interest. And so, but the point is, the penalty wasn't they were banned from Grandma's house. Grandma didn't build the wall and say you can't come over no more. Did I say something? Grandma didn't, she didn't stop feeding my cousins. She didn't stop feeding them. But they understood that they broke a rule and there were consequences for the rules that they broke. Does that make sense? So, but I'll say it was a life-changing event for me because I was no longer the troublemaker in the family because I never broke Grandma's statue. Whenever somebody got in trouble, I was like, at least I wasn't the one that broke Grandma's statue. So, anyway. So people will say, well, you may say, well, Roy, you make a good argument on social justice and civil rights argument for, reparations and the slave labor. How do you make that? But is there a biblical reference for this? And there is. There is a biblical reference. And I want to share that with you now. It is in the book of Leviticus, and they are called Jubilee laws that were established for the Egyptians and the Israelites. They designed these laws to prevent any future generations of Israelites from becoming slaves. The Jubilee laws stated that every 50 years, someone would blow a horn and everyone who was working as an indentured servant, slave, due to debt, were to be freed. And all of the land that had been bought and sold over the last 50 years was returned to its original owners. That was Leviticus, and that would be, you can find that yourself in chapter 25, verses 8 through 55, the Jubilee laws. Jesus also makes a case as well on the Jubilee law. And in one of his first community gatherings, he says, "The Spirit of the Lord is on me because he has anointed me to proclaim good news to the poor. He has sent me to proclaim freedom for the prisoners and recovery of sight for the blind, to set the oppressed free, to proclaim the year of the Lord's favor." That's in the book of Isaiah, chapter 61. So the Bible does address reparations, and freeing those in bondage. And as I stated earlier, in America, the level of slavery was different in America than anywhere else, because a person born into slavery could almost be guaranteed that they would die in slavery. Same for their children and their children and their children's children's children. And at some point in time, once we got to the Civil War, 1865, that is where we experience the first mass or legal freedom from slavery, 1865. Now, as we talk about land, and we talk about 1865, there were some attempts to rectify or repair the damage. General William T. Sherman introduced Proposition 15, which provided for 40 acres and a mule to the newly freed slave. Well, that would have been a great step to repairing the damage and to providing an economic floor for our ancestors. Now, what happened? Abraham Lincoln was assassinated. Andrew Johnson assumes the presidency. Andrew Johnson rescinds Proposition 15. He agrees to reparations. However, he pays reparations to Southern landowners and plantation owners for their lost wages and profits due to the losses of the Civil War and the loss of slave labor. So Southern plantation owners get the reparations, quote unquote. So reparations were available, but they never made their way to the enslaved African and the descendants of them thereof. So therefore, creating an entire system of segregation, subjugation, and exploitation. And ultimately disenfranchisement, which now we see in the form of mass incarceration. We see a wage gap, a wealth gap, tremendous wealth gaps. And all of this spans back to the inability or the unwillingness to address repair. Well, we will talk about this, and now I think it's amazing. I think it's amazing now to see presidential candidates not necessarily providing solutions to reparations, but just talking about reparations, to being open to reparations. 4 years ago, any candidate talking about reparation or willing to discuss, you'd be dead in the water as a political candidate saying that you embrace reparations. I know for a fact Barack Obama, if he said that he embraced reparations in 2007, 2008, it would have been over. But now we're talking about reparations, and as polls are coming out, we find that a lot of young people, thank you young people, are right at 50-50 about saying reparations would be a good idea. As some of us older folks, we're like, oh no, we don't know why, no, But the majority and many people are now beginning to just talk about it, and I'm happy about that. I'm happy that we're willing to talk about and address the issue of reparations, and I'm hoping that you all take the initiative and study the issue and research it and talk about it with your loved ones and your friends and whomever that will listen, your elected officials. Tell them that you learned something about reparations. And so we'll have more conversation about that later on this afternoon. And in closing, I just want to say, I believe I've established a life goal, and my own life goal is to leave people, places, and the planet a little better than how I found it. That's my goal. All right. And for our young people, where are my young people? I see some of y'all. So I'm going to teach y'all. I want to leave you with a poem. And I believe that this poem will adequately wrap up today's talk. And this poem was created by Muhammad Ali. And it is what is known as the shortest poem ever created. And so you can't forget it. So the poem is me, we. That's it. but it's profound. Me, we. Unfortunately, we got too many people in society. That's me, me. But if we embrace me, we, you understand that you cannot be an island unto yourself. You are a part of the whole, regardless to, who you are, your skin color, where you're from. You're a part of the whole human family. And what also makes me, I just thought about another quote from Dr. King. And he said, we all, may have come here on different ships, but we're in the same boat now. So thank you all for your afternoon, and hope you get to stay for our talk and lecture later on this in about a half hour. So thank you all.
Please rise in body or spirit as we sing 149, Lift Every Voice and Sing. Lift every voice and sing till earth and heaven ring with the harmonies of liberty. Let our rejoicing powers high as the listening skies. Let it resound loud as the rolling sea. Sing a song full of the faith that the dark past has taught us. Sing a song full of the hope that the present has brought us. Facing the rising sun of our new day begun, let us march on till victory is won. Stony the road we trod, under the chasing rod, lifting the days when hope unborn had died. Yet with a steady beat, and not our weary feet, come to the place for which our Father sighed. We have come over a way with the tears has been watered. We have come treading our path through the blood of the slaughter. Out from the gloomy past till now we stand at last, where the white gleam of our bright star is past. God of our weary years, God of our silent tears, thou who hast brought us thus far on the way, thou who hast by thy power led us into the light, keep us forever on the path, we pray. Lest our feet stray from the places, our God, where we met thee. Lest our hearts, drunk with the wine of the world, we forget thee. Shadowed beneath thy hand, may we forever stand, true to our God, true to our native land.
That's the national anthem. Did you know that? Google it. Google it. And the
Official song of the NAACP.
That's right. Well, join me, if you will, please, in reading in unison the words with which we extinguish our chalice. Though we extinguish the chalice,
Our connection to each other and this community remains. May its light guide us this week as we walk the path of justice, Speak words of love and fill our world with compassion until we meet again.
We see a couple quick things as we go. First of all, next week in this space, we'll have a shared potluck with Nefesh Sol, which is the Jewish congregation that rents space from us. And they have an amazing speaker and author coming to share time with us. So right after the second service next week, hope you can be there. And hope you can stay around today. We have some light food out to get you through outside. And then at 1 o'clock right here, Roy and a couple other community leaders are going to dive a little more deeply into what Roy talked about this morning. So again, hope you'll be able to stay around. Well, now may life bless you and keep you. May the Spirit make its face to shine on you and be gracious unto you. May the universe pour out the fullness of its blessings on you and bring you peace. Go in peace, dear friends. Amen.